This video explains trimming your wheel throne projects. You need to make sure your projects are leather hard and not too soft and not bone dry. Otherwise, it will be difficult to trim. The first thing you need to do is pick up your pot and feel it. You're going to pinch from the top to the bottom to feel where it's the thickest and thinnest, and where you'll need to trim more and trim less. The first demonstration is a foot ring. A foot ring is nice because it allows your cup or whatever you're making to sit on an actual foot and not the base of the pot. Here are a couple examples of what a foot ring looks like. One is sitting on a table and one's a worm's eye view. First, you're going to wire off your pot for the second time, and then you're going to put your pot upside down on the wheel head. Do not use a bat. Use the rings on the wheel head to center your pot. To see how centered it is, turn your wheel on slowly and see how much of a wobble there is. When the space between the pot and the rings are even all the way around, you're going to anchor your pot down with pieces of fresh clay. Your clay needs to be touching the pot and the base. Next, you're going to use your pen tool to make your ring. You're going to press the pen tool down to make one line. It will make one side of the ring. Then you'll do the same for the other side of the ring. This will show you where to cut and where not to cut. You are going to cut on the inside of the ring and the outside of the ring. The goal is to match the inside of what the base of the pot would look like. So if you have a cylinder, you kind of want to look like a cylinder. If you have a rounded bottom on the inside, you want to be a rounded bottom on the outside. You're going to slowly work towards the ring and take away all of that clay with your tool. And then you're going to do the same thing on the inside. It's a slow process, but it's kind of a fun process as well. The goal for your foot is to be raised and separated from everything else in the pot. So whenever it's flipped over, sitting on a table, the foot is sitting on the table and nothing else. So you want to make sure everything's nice and clean and crisp and carved away from the foot, on the inside and outside of the ring. You want to make sure everything is smooth. You don't want to have a pot that's going to be sitting on a table and scratching up the table. So make sure everything is smooth and nice and neat looking. So now I'm just checking out and testing my pot. I'm going to lift it up, and if I feel that it's really heavy on the bottom still, I need to trim more. If you kind of tap on the middle, you can kind of see and hear what it feels like, if there's still a lot of clay left or not. If you feel like it's heavy at all when you lift it up, you need to put it back on and keep trimming. The whole point of trimming is to make a nice weighted pot. A good pot feels light and does not feel heavy. You will be surprised about how much clay you can actually take away from your pot, especially if you're new to throwing, because you probably have a lot of clay on the bottom anyway. You do need to be careful because you don't want to trim too much and make your pot crack. However, that's not very likely for beginners because there's so much clay on the bottom anyway. Here are a couple glazed and finished pots with foot rings. The nice thing about a foot ring is that you can glaze the inside of the bottom and it's still okay because the foot is the only thing that touches the bottom of the kiln shell. Next we will learn about how to make a flat and smooth bottom of your pot. First you're going to wire off your pot. You should have already done this one time, so it should be a little bit easier. Then you're going to take your lid off your pot and put it upside down on the wheel head. You're going to center it with the rings that are on the wheel head. You can do something that's called tap centering if you like, or just see how close it is to the ring all the way around when you turn the wheel on. Once it's centered on the wheel head, you're going to take fresh clay and anchor it down to the wheel and to the pot. Next you will start trimming. I like to start with my larger ribbon tool and I work on the sides and the bottom. I want both to be smooth, but I also want to match the inside of the bottom of the pot. When you start trimming the bottom, you want to keep your ribbon tool as flat as possible and as consistent as possible. I start on the outside and work towards the inside. As you trim, try to remember the thickest areas of the pot. So if you had a really thick side and bottom, you want to trim off more there. You can pick it up and look at it and while you're trimming, and then you can also put it back. You can also tap the center. When you are done trimming, it should be smooth and consistent. You can carve your name on the bottom. I would use a sharp edge of a pen tool or something else so you can have a clear written name. Here's a finished and fired example. It shows you how the bottom smoothed out and how the thickness on the bottom is taken away. It's also going to show you the inside and how it matches on the inside and outside. Here are some tips for a successful trimming experience. You need to make sure that your consistency of your clay is between leather and leather hard. You always want to make sure you're trimming on the right side, so if it's going counterclockwise for most right-handed people it is, you are going to trim on the right side. You also want to trim the bottom and sides, which is typically where it's the thickest. And then you want to match the inside of the pot with the outside of the pot, and you're also going to choose which kind of bottom you want and make sure it's not heavy anywhere and that it's consistent and nice and smooth.